This is Chicago's Progressive Talk, 820 AM, WCPT Willow Springs, and online at WCPT820.com, where facts matter.
The following program, The Lightning Strike, is sponsored by Mohammed Faheem, and to the extent applicable, their guests. The views and opinions expressed therein do not necessarily reflect those of NewsWeb Radio Company or its management.
Get ready to be jolted out of the ordinary and into a world where conversations are charged with intensity and facts. The Lightning Strike Talk Radio with your host, Mohammed Faheem, broadcasting live from the heart of the city on Chicago's Progressive Talk Radio, WCPT 820 AM. Welcome to a radio show that charges through the airwaves with an electricity like no other. Here's your host, Mohammed Faheem.
Good morning, Chicago, and welcome to the Lightning Strike. Joining me today in the studios is John Arena, former Chicago City Council member, and Ken DeLuc and Tyree Pipkins, our intern, everyone in the studio today. And we got a full agenda today, folks. So if you need to call in, talk to us, 773-763-9278 is the number. Again, 773-763-9278. There is a lot of things happening in the world and around us in our country also as we speak. John, welcome.
Thank you, Mohammed. It's great to be here again.
Well, thank you for coming in, and we'll have our person of the week as a guest also coming in shortly. But I wanted to start off by talking about Maine and the shooting that happened in Maine. 18 people killed and, a dozen or more injured.
13 injured, yeah.
Yeah, 13 injured. And then the Republicans always come up with this talking point that, it's not the guns, it was a mental health issue.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if it was a mental health issue, why isn't it being addressed? Anytime that there is gun violence, we hear this thing that it's a mental health issue, it's not the gun.
Yeah.
Now,
and it's not the time to talk about the gun.
Yeah, that's the worst part about it. I mean, exactly the right time. When do you talk about it? Oh, we have our hearts and prayers with them. That doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
No. And our newly elected Speaker of the House, he's now shifted it. Well, it's to the heart, which I don't know what that means. That was his comments were one. Well, we can't be talking about guns right now because again, this is the same trope. But we're still getting to know this guy, and I wasn't really impressed with his response. It wasn't very empathetic. It was basically, we have dark hearts in America, and that's not what America is.
We have dark hearts in America. I wonder where those dark hearts came from. Maybe from somebody who's the leader of the pack with a dark heart?
Exactly. I mean, the rhetoric, right, is self-sufficiency, and we're creating more people who feel alone and feel isolated. I think we don't know what motivated this shooter. I think these things are still going to come out over the coming days and weeks.
Right.
But the fact is, the laws that exist in Maine are pretty lenient in terms of people who are challenged with mental health issues.
Right.
The process that they described to not allow somebody in his situation to have a gun. He had been treated just weeks before.
2 weeks before, and Maine has what is called as the yellow flag law,
That's
not
it.
the red flag law that most other states have. Again, I have nothing against Second Amendment, but Second Amendment was written when there were no guns with the capacities that they have, the military style guns that we have, right?
Yeah. Well, we didn't have a standing army, so what I always find, that there's this omission in the conversation about the Second Amendment, that it starts with the words, a well-regulated militia.
Right.
So we don't have militias because at the time we didn't have a standing army. So it was to call up people to defend the country against outside forces as needed.
Yeah.
And you're right. The military hardware of the time is nothing compared to what we have now.
One thing I want to add to this, too, when you talk about mental health issues, basically that is the other trope that the right tends to say, oh, well, they had a mental health issue. It's only, I think, less than 6% of any of these incidences that have occurred could be attributed to a mental health issue. Everybody else would be perfectly capable of going out and buying these weapons. And back in the day when the assault rifle ban was on, the amount of these incidents was like not even 10% of what they are today. So it's a policy that works. Why does someone need to shoot 20 people in a matter of 30 seconds? It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. And Britain and other, many other major, countries don't have these weapons. They have very much stricter controls on weapons. And it's not that you can't get them if you are trained and if you are evaluated. And nobody's saying, it always goes towards, well, the government's coming to sweep up all the guns.
Right. They're going to take our rights away from us. The NRA has been feeding a lot of politicians throughout the years. Okay. And every time that happens, I think they push this agenda of, oh, no, it was not the gun. The guy had a mental health issue. Folks, you are listening to the Lightning Strike. I'm your host, Mohammed Faheem. Our person of the week today is going to be Dr. Adam. Phil, you are waiting online. Please, if you can stay online, we'll definitely take your call in as the show progresses. So you can listen as we are talking. And I know that you had called in before also in the last a couple of weeks back. Glad that you are following what we're doing. And it is something that we need to make this. It is our show. It's not my show or Ken's show or anyone's show. It is us, and we have to figure out how to throw some light on lightning on the issues around us, and how can we hold our elected representatives responsible for representing us and not for the lobbies that are raising these zillions of dollars for them, right? So our person of the week is Dr. Adam, and Sheila White is our segment producer. We're not going to take a break at this point. We'll just go straight to Sheila and Dr. Adam. Sheila, good morning. Welcome.
Good morning. Good morning. How's everyone today?
Absolutely fabuloso. Okay, alive and breathing. There's more than I can say for many people out there.
That's right. That's right. Especially what's all going on in the world today. I am really excited to have with us our special guest of the week, our person of the week. His name is Dr. James Adams, and he is actually a pastor. He's a comedian. He's an actor, and he's a former marshal as well. And he has a new sitcom that'll be coming up called Representing the Priestleys. So he's got a lot of things that he's doing in the community of Gary, Indiana. Welcome to the show, Dr. Adams.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. God bless all.
Good morning, Dr. Adam. Thank you for joining us. Man, how many lives have you lived? More than a cat?
It's still going.
Okay, so I counted 5 or 6, so you still got a few left, right, Sheila?
Yeah, that's right. And Dr. Adams, I want to just start asking you a couple of questions in reference to all of the things going on in the world. I know you're a former marshal, but with the hostage situation going on in Israel and all of that, what are some things that they do in reference to try to get people out of trouble or danger in that type of sense? I want to begin there.
Well, the biggest thing with hostage negotiation is to make sure that everyone is able to leave safely. You want to make sure that all parties leave with their lives intact, as well as their limbs and anything of that. So that's the biggest motive and mission when dealing with hostage negotiation. There are casualties, unfortunately, in some instances and situations, but through the negotiation process itself, it should always be with the main goal to get everyone out as safe as possible. I think over, what's going on in the world itself. I mean, we're not just looking at what's happening in the Middle East, and we have to look at things as a whole, as a conglomerate in the entire world. A lot of things that the media and the news does not publicize, as being in law enforcement. I've been on scenes and literally seen everything go one way, and then you get to see it on the news and they say it happened a total different way, or you don't even see it on the news. So it's a lot of things that we are uninformed about, that we as a people should take more of a preliminary look into to know what's going on in our communities, know what's going on in our society, and know what's going on in the world as a whole. I'm not saying that we are able to change everything, but when we're informed, we have a better viewpoint on what to do.
And, it's interesting because as a pastor, I know that you deal with people with mental health issues. A lot of things that are going on in the world today, mental health is a big issue. So how do you help with that issue as far as with the church and in the community as well?
I think if we get back to the basics, mental health, we have to deal with it from a spiritual point of view first and foremost.
Okay.
Yes, there are medicines, and yes, there are psychologists and psychiatrists, and there are neurosurgeons, and all of the sort. But before it was them, it was God. Mm-hmm. And we have to start where the creation started at. It started with the Creator. So being able to have a relationship with God will help to endure and understand the spiritual demons that we're battling against. And it's not just in the capacity of one saying mental health issues. If we all look at it, we all are bipolar to some degree. We all have some sort of schizophrenia. We all have some sort of ADHD.
Mm-hmm.
We have some of these byproducts of the labels, quote unquote, because they're not issues, Ms. Sheila. They're labels. It's a big difference, it's labels.
I'm so glad you are bringing that out, that these are not issues but labels, and especially in our community now, there is this fear of being labeled by a name. So when someone have a mental health issue, they don't want people to know about it. They don't want their friends and family to know about it. They don't want to take any, professional advice and guidance on how to handle that. That's what happened, John, with this case in Plainfield also, with the recent horrific murder of, Wadia Al-Fayoumi, the 6-year-old child in Plainfield. The landlord basically snapped, and no one, even his closest family or friends, knew the strain that he was going through because of the input from the media and other sources. Even his wife didn't know that this guy is about to snap. So what do you think, Dr. Adam? It should be treated like any other physical illness, right? I mean, if you have a sore throat or a cough or, something wrong with you, you go and see a doctor. When would people realize this?
I'd like to go a little deeper than that. I'd like to start back at the contact of humanity. We've got so detached from each other, especially with COVID. COVID did a whirlwind on us as human beings, to where we lost the aspect of communication. Just checking on each other, and if you're in the same home with someone, as you said, and you notice them coughing, what do? You say, "Babe, are you okay? I hear you coughing. Maybe you should get that checked out." Mm-hmm. So the same concept should go along with society, but can do that for our brothers and sisters alike. But as you talked about the labels, here it is. We put the labels on people. Oh, they have mental health issues. So what does it tell everybody else? Stay far, far away from them, because at any moment they can go off on the deep end and they'll hurt you. They'll hurt themselves.
Right.
So when we get back to the root cause of being able to have the compassion to love each other through hell and high water, the compassion to say, "Hey, I'm here with you." That's usually all that someone needs. Do you know that one hug can change someone's life? A hug. Just a simple hug. That's the most simplistic thing of a human being in contact with another.
Yep.
Right.
And I think, you're bringing up a great point about us not knowing each other. One of the things that we are doing, by the way, Will County and the village of Plainfield really stepped up to the plate to bring the community together after this horrific murder, of Wadia. And we are following that up now in Plainfield with a community and interfaith gathering. And
can I interject right there?
Sure, go ahead.
don't get me wrong. I'm all for the guys in blue, of course, being in law enforcement myself. But it's always after the fact, you know. It's always we do these great things after the fact. After you have this horrendous, massacre, then it's after the fact. Oh, let's come together. Look at 9/11.
Right.
All these things happen, and then now the nation comes together finally. We've had 400 years of slavery, and now all of a sudden it's let's try to get together. When we get back to the basics of reality, what's really there, my friend, is the fact that we have lost sight of our purpose in life. Our major purpose is to serve God. That's it. That's all. And then after that, we have a fight. I hear people say all the time, "Oh, I'm looking for my purpose. I'm trying to find my purpose in life." Your purpose is to serve God.
And I totally agree with you. And you can serve God by serving His creation. Okay.
That's it.
And that is what we are trying to do now. I started a nonprofit about 7 years back, Dr. Adam, called American Muslims Assisting Neighbors. And we have been working with a lot of other faith-based agencies and trying to get the community together. So now when this thing happened, immediately we did a vigil, by the way, the next day after the funeral in Plainfield, and about 2,000 people showed up. So my thing to them was, yep, showed up once. What's going to happen next time? We need to get to know each other better. Okay? So November 15th at Live Spring Church in Plainfield in the evening, that's Wednesday 6 to 8:30, we are putting together this community and interfaith gathering. And then we want to make this like every other month or so, so people can get to know each other. And I'm coming up with this concept called Each One, Teach One. So if you know your neighbor, great. If you don't, get to know your neighbor. Okay, and let your neighbor get to know you. So on that note, we got a couple of minutes, and before we jump into our rest of the rigmarole over here, any parting advice, parting words for us, Dr. Adam?
Absolutely.
Mohammed, I want to just jump in real quick and tell you that he also has a sitcom coming up representing the Priestleys, which is about love, laughter, and life. And so, Dr. Adams, you can go into the last few comments as well as you're closing it out.
Absolutely, yes. Definitely working on representing the Priestleys. It is a sitcom, as you said, that will be coming out very, very soon. So please be looking for that. And of course, the entirety of the sitcom is built around love, laughter, and life. Learning those concepts and operating as such with each other. Getting back to the basics. The root cause of what God has called us to do in life with each other and for each other. So I definitely want to close with, if you don't know your neighbor, get to know them, get to know who you live amongst, and be there for them. Love is such a powerful word, and we misuse it all the time. You can't turn real love on and off. If you open your mouth and you say you love somebody, then love them until the end. Endure it until the end. Go the last mile of the way. Go the last leg of the journey, because that's what real love does. Love doesn't say, okay, well, I love you today, but you made me mad, on tomorrow, so now it's tomorrow, which is today, and I hate you. Okay. If I love you today, I have to love you today. So that's my message for the masses. Love and let God be God.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. Adam, and thank you, Sheena, for bringing such a wonderful guest as a Person of the Week. We'll take a quick commercial break, and on the back end of the break, when we come back in, Phil will get you on, and let's start talking about what's happening in the world out there. And I think you want to talk about Biden and Israel, Phil. So if you can please continue to hold, we will bring you right back after the break.
Are you a business looking for the right talent or a job seeker searching for your dream career? Look no further than the Center for Strategic Solutions, your workforce solutions experts. Our experienced team at the Center for Strategic Solutions is dedicated to connecting employers with top-tier talent and helping job seekers find opportunities that truly align with their goals.
You're hired.
We're more than just consultants. We're your partners in success. Ready to take your workforce to the next level or land that ideal job? Contact the Center for Strategic Solutions today at 1-847-306-9274 or visit us online at www.cfss.us. The Center for Strategic Solutions, your bridge to a brighter future in the Windy City. The number to call is 847-306-9274 or send us an email at info@cfss.us. That is info@cfss.us.
Did you know there's an Illinois mandate that states by 2025, ComEd has to have 25% of the energy they deliver come from a green source? Because of this, plus the fees and taxes you've already paid on this program, if you qualify, you can get solar on your home at no out-of-pocket cost. This can mean an average savings on your electric bill of maybe 30 to 50%. More importantly, it would eliminate the uncertainty of ComEd raising your rates by whoever knows how much each year. Some people have noticed a 41% increase on their bill this spring, and ComEd has been asking for another 80% increase over the next 4 years. If your average bill is $200 a month now, maybe it could be reduced to $100 a month. Now, 5 years, would you rather pay $115 or possibly $400 to $500? If you'd like to see if you can qualify for this program, call Ken DeLuc at 312-617-8979. That's 312-617-8979. Help us save the environment and change that electric bill burden. That's 312-617-8979. Take advantage of this program while it's still available.
Get ready to be jolted out of the ordinary and into a world where conversations are charged with intensity and facts. The Lightning Strike Talk Radio with your host, Mohammed Faheem, broadcasting live from the heart of the city on Chicago's Progressive Talk Radio, WCPT 820 AM. Welcome to a radio show that charges through the airwaves with an electricity like no other. Here's your host, Mohammed Faheem.
On that note, folks, good morning and welcome back in the studio with me today. Ken DeLuc and John, thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining us. And, of course, Tyree is sitting there giving me that look. And Phil, thank you so much for holding on, my friend. What's on your mind? You're on WCPT. Welcome.
Hello, Faheem. I'm still a little astonished at something you said last week regarding Biden and Israeli-Palestine war.
I was just telling John that, Phil and I had a nice conversation. Phil, if I remember correct, we ended up on a note that let's sit down and have a cup of coffee together so we can talk about it in more detail. And I would still love to do that with you. Go ahead. What's on your mind?
Okay, so I admit I'm no expert on the Middle East, far from it. But I do know Biden is. He's incredibly sharp on these matters, as was just demonstrated with the Paul Ryan debate some years ago. So anyways, your assertion is that Biden could end the Palestinian-Israeli war, like, immediately if he wanted to. I think you said funding. He could withhold funding or something. So apparently there's this solution, so simple, as plain as the nose on everybody's face, and Biden won't do it. So that leads me to think, there's got to be one or two reasons. Either he's too stupid to do it, or he's just an evil, quote-unquote, establishment Democrat, and he's benefiting from this.
Well, Phil, let me have John answer that. He is in the studio with me today, and John has been a former council member of the Chicago City Council, also very experienced in these things, much more than I am. John, what do you think?
Well, I think Biden this is a very difficult situation. I don't
Absolutely.
think that
between a rock and a hard place.
Yeah, I don't think there are simple answers to this. Obviously, this is out of centuries of land changing hands and many mistakes in terms of how different parties are seen. I think one of the things that I'd love to see Biden do is be a little more equitable towards the representation of the Palestinian perspective in this moment. And I think it was a misstep that he recently had a meeting there was one Palestinian representative in the meeting.
Well, no, John, just a couple of days back, Biden met with about 5 or 6 different representatives from the Muslim faith. And he had Weil, I'm trying to remember Weil's full name from M. Gage. There was the gentleman who started Iman in Chicago, the Inner City Muslim Action Network. And there was a lady in the meeting, 5 or 6 different Muslim representatives in there. And
I'm not saying he's not meeting with these folks. The challenge is so much in politics is what is rising to the top. He definitely, I do not doubt that there are a lot of meetings going on that don't get coverage. The problem is the ones that are getting coverage are presenting a bit of a narrative, and he's even said some things that overly weigh on the support of Israel side, and aren't trying to. If he could do anything in this moment, because I think he has empathy and he has understanding of the situation, as the caller, as Phil indicates. He could try to start saying, look, this isn't about one side or the other, it's about both, and start bridging that gap in a moment where tensions are high.
I totally agree with you. I totally agree with you. Phil, that's what I meant when I said that, President Biden can stop this war, if he wants to. Again, the problem is that they look at numbers.
Am I still on?
Yeah, still on. They look at numbers. Okay. Anybody in politics is looking at numbers, and there's going a lot of polling going on behind the scenes as to what are the issues that are likely to get you reelected, who's going to be paying you more money for your next campaign. All of those factors come in. John, correct me if I'm wrong, because you were in politics. I ran for office, and there is this intense pressure from people that we don't even know, which, the politicians take that into account when they're making their decisions. They're not looking at humanity or... Yes.
Oh, really? So Biden, the guy who pulled us out of Afghanistan, full well knowing all the negative publicity he was going to get, and did it anyways.
Yep.
Now he's kowtowing to the powers that be. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It's in Hamas's charter to kill all Jews. Do you know that?
No,
and I'm not fighting with.
Hey, Steve, stop
either.
Right there.
I know.
Stop right there. Okay, Phil, stop right there. Have you read that charter? Personally?
I have not, and admit it. Maybe I.
And if you have not read something personally, one of the things on WCPT.
Hamas's ideology. Isn't Hamas's ideology? Am I wrong?
Again, Phil. One of the things on WCPT, and I'm very particular and careful about it. WCPT says facts matter. And if we do not have the facts on something, if it is only conjecture, then we cannot have a good conversation about any topic. You agree with me on that, right?
Have repeated this, though. Stephanie Miller and guests have repeated that it's in Hamas's charter to kill all Jews.
Anybody can repeat anything, Phil. You remember during the Second World War, one of the...
all right, I'll have to look into that.
Correct. So why don't you do me a favor, my friend? Listen, Phil. Why don't you do me a favor? Look into it. See if you can find the original document or whatever, something that send it to me. You can even text it to us at WCPT over here, so that I can be as well educated as you are, and then we can have a good conversation. On that note, Phil, thank you so much for calling in, and we'll be looking forward to hearing back from you again. And John, I think that's a good way to leave this conversation. What do you think?
Well, I think, Phil's point, and I think what we have to address is, Biden is a political leader. And
right.
What I know about from being in a position where you have to make tough decisions, where there are bad and worse decisions to make.
Okay.
And those are the times when leadership really matters. And so, the political calculation has to be part of the conversation, and he's got plenty of advisors to advise him on that. Mm-hmm. But usually the hardest decisions are the ones that have to go against the grain or against what is out there in the ether about what one party believes and what another party believes.
And that's where leadership comes in.
And that's what I'm saying, where Biden, I think, has to do a little bit of better job of being that guy in the middle of the vice and saying, look, yes, there's Israelis that don't agree with what Netanyahu is doing. There are Palestinians that don't agree with what Hamas is doing. And those are the voices that get drowned out when bombs are being dropped and missiles are being dropped.
Actually, right now,
that's a great point. You have to differentiate Hamas from the Palestinians.
Yes.
They're two separate entities, and you can't just lump them together.
And one of the things that we were talking about before the show started is when you say Palestinians, folks, remember, not all Palestinians are 100% Muslims, okay? In Palestine, you have got Christians and you have got Jews. And the Zionists ended up bombing one of the oldest Christian churches in the West Bank now. Mm-hmm. So where does that leave? I mean, there's plenty of Jewish friends that I have, and many of them, I would say majority of them, do not agree with the policy of Zionism, not Judaism. There's a difference over there. That is currently taking the lead in Palestine. Amin, thank you so much for calling in. We have another caller calling in, and he wants to talk about Palestine. We'll give you a few minutes, my friend. Go ahead.
Peace be with you.
So peace be with you also.
You said some of what I was going to say, so I won't repeat that. But I do want to emphasize that, what we deal with today is no more than a symptom of the problem. The war going on over there right now, that's a symptom of the problem. Mm-hmm. The problem was way back in the 1800s when the Zionists decided they wanted Palestine for their homeland. And that's what the problem is. Zionism is not a religious group organization, it's a political group organization. And they're following the same policy as the early European colonialism. What people are not looking at is they keep saying the Jews need to have a homeland, the Jews need to have a homeland. It's not about the Jews. Jews were living in Palestine before. Mm-hmm. When I first started studying about that, is because of two questions. And one of the questions in my mind was, well, if the Jews needed a homeland, at this point I was ignorant totally of what was going on. If the Jews needed a homeland because of what happened to them in Germany, why did they carve out a part of Germany and give it to them? But then when I started studying, I found out the plan was long before Germany.
Well, there weren't many Jews left in Germany at the time.
What? No. Hang on 1 second. Ken, come on. There were plenty of Jews left in Germany, and, obviously the Holocaust was there. No one is denying that, all of those bad things happened. But yeah, why didn't they, the winners of the Second World War just carve out a section and said, okay, fine, here's your Jewish homeland? Why didn't that happen, John?
Well, I think it was a reaction to the horror of, I don't think, once the world understood what Germany was doing, what the Nazis were doing, it was a reaction to that horror.
They wanted them out of their period.
They wanted to exterminate them, so that's a different
No, I mean the remaining Jews. The world wanted them out of that horror to where they can live in peace somewhere else, right?
And you can understand why they wouldn't want to be seen as, they wouldn't want that to be their homeland. The question is, was it, I'm not fully versed on the decision to create Israel where it is.
Well, here's where it all started.
They created it because partially there were people that saw this as an opportunity to fulfill the Zionist mission, which was just described, and in the light of that horror, sometimes the simplest answer, right? Give them a homeland, give them a place that they can protect themselves. I think the challenge now is we see, societies are better when they're integrated. Societies are better when you have association with folks that you might disagree with, whether it's religion, whether it's politics, but we find ways. It's about setting up, I think the challenge is, how do you set up a system where people can live with each other and not say, here's a boundary you cannot cross? And I think that's the challenge we have right now, because what is materialized is an area of control that some have described as open air, camps in Gaza and the West Bank that are controlled.
John, it's not just an open air camp. No, that it's an open air prison. Okay, concentration camp is more likely the word to use for that. You can't move out of there. Okay, you cannot travel out of there to any other country. There is no industry over there.
There's no agency for those people. They don't have control of their own economy.
And if that has been going on for the last 60, 70 years, the pressure builds up.
Yeah.
Okay. And obviously there may be some actors out there, bad actors who took advantage of the situation. But, Israel has been, beating down on these people for 50, 60 years. And it didn't just happen now.
Yeah.
There was this Palestinian journalist, her last name was Akhlaq, I'm forgetting what her first name was. She was shot dead by an Israeli, soldier for just doing her job as a journalist.
Mm-hmm.
So far in this war now, I believe about 26 journalists have been killed.
Yeah.
There is no justification for waging war on civilians on both sides. Okay. Yeah. Civilians are not military combatants. Now, Hamas is using civilians as human shields. That has become too old a cliche now to go after civilians.
Yeah. Well, that's been used in war forever.
Forever.
But I think that the challenge is oppression never works, right? That never solves. Like if I just oppress these people enough, they'll leave us alone. We just know that as you squeeze that balloon, it pops. And so when people are oppressed and don't have agency and don't have control over their own economies, their own, their own way of living,
their own life, period.
Yeah,
okay,
then they lash out. And so we have a situation now that is the result of decades of people being oppressed, and then something happens that brings it to the surface, and they say, oh, the horror of 1,200 Israelis being killed against the slow pressure, the slow killing that has been happening in Gaza and the West Bank.
For 50, 60 years now. I'm so glad you're bringing that up.
So how do we move? I think that we always go back. When I hear, back in the 1800s somebody did this, or back in the 1700s, we have to go from here forward. And this goes back to where are the leaders that are going to look forward and say, how do we acknowledge that there's oppression, acknowledge that there are differences, but say, how do we move forward?
How do we move forward? That's where leadership comes in, right? It can't
be, I don't think we know exactly what the Israeli mission is here, but what it looks like is to carpet bomb half of Gaza.
Yeah.
And they have destroyed hundreds of thousands of housing.
Absolutely.
Look at the map. If you look at a satellite picture of Gaza now, half of it is destroyed. If they go in there, and the plan is to just say, we're going to militarily occupy and take this land and just put more pressure on the Palestinians that were living, cut Gaza in half. Like, that feels like where this is going from a military standpoint in Israel.
And that's
the wrong approach.
And there's no solution.
Yeah.
That's not the solution, because here's what happens now, okay? I'm told that about 60-70% of the population in Palestine and Gaza is under 18.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's assume that Israel goes in and catches every single Hamas leader and kills them. Okay, let's not mince words over here.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think you are going to take away the thought or the initial thing that created Hamas? They want their own independence, man.
You're basically setting up a system where you're creating more radicals who are going to say, I need to fill that vacuum that's being created by leadership.
There you go.
This is what we know. This is what happens when you say we're just going to go in and oppress more and take more and not acknowledge the humanity on the other side. And the rhetoric that's coming from the Minister of Defense in Israel is saying they're not human, and there are inhuman acts. But they are human beings.
The term that was used was they are human animals. Come on, man. Get real.
Yeah.
Okay. These are human beings. Humanity should come first, right? And unfortunately, the moment you talk about this, immediately the response is, oh, you are against anti-Semitic, and hey, most people don't realize, folks, that there's no such thing as being anti-Semitic. The Palestinians and the Arabs, they are all Semites living over there. Mm-hmm. Okay. So if someone wants to talk about Zionist,
I was going to say, you hit it on the head, though, when you said, in order to, the solution to this is to integrate it, okay? Because if you continue to have a situation where it's us versus them, or it's black versus white, you just fester in your own talking points to a point where something explodes. So what needs to be done is open up the borders to everybody there, let them live throughout, and have the same opportunity as everybody else.
And Ken, I think our leadership has a lot of influence in that area, on all countries, not just Israel, on all countries, and our leadership has to step up to the plate over here.
Or at least, if not even that, enforce a two-state solution so they actually have independence and they can do what they want to do, and bringing them into the world community.
Okay, any time that the two-state solution comes up, both sides say, we want it, but then we don't want it, because it's a question of you're going to lose our hold and our power on the people. Like after the 1967 war in 1970, there was a proposal by the United Nations to give 49% of the land to one side, 51% to the other, create two states. Both sides said, no, we don't want it. Okay. Yeah. And that is something that we have to wrap our arms around. And folks, again, please remember, we are not bashing any side over here. We are not bashing, the Jews of Israel. No. There's a separate entity out there. The Zionist, how do I call it, ideology, is something that needs to be addressed. And Amin, thank you for continuing to hold. We'll bring you back on, and I guess we got Pete on the line also, and we are about 10 minutes away from ending the show, folks. So please make your comments real quick, and we have a couple of other important things to talk about also today. We didn't really want to talk in this much detail about what's happening in the Middle East, but hey, this is what happens on live radio. Go ahead, Amin.
Okay, I'll just come on one of the things you said. There were several. You talk about just move forward. You don't just move forward if you leave the sore there. It's like if you get a wound and you know, we'll just cover it up. You have people over there. You got about 4 generations of people who have been hurt. And I can understand this from perception of being an African American. Nobody is recognizing the injustice that's really done to the Palestinians. And you say, okay, well, let's move forward. They have came and taken their land. And everybody's trying to justify that or ignore it. In other words, that's why I say, why didn't they give them European land? When they cut up Palestine, they didn't have any Palestinians at that table. Nobody, you talk about the horrors they didn't want to inflict upon the Jewish people. Mm-hmm. Well, who cared about the horrors they inflicted upon the Palestinian people in taking their land? That's
okay, and I think you make a great point on that, Pete. And sorry, Amin, and we'll let you go on that. And I guess again, not politicians but statesmen have to come up to the table. Yeah. And I don't think that our current leadership is showing any signs of statesmanship. Okay, sorry to say that, folks, but if you look at my passport, it says American. It doesn't say Democrat or Republican or any other label. As an American, I want to make sure that our leadership takes decisions that are that's what made America great, not the MAGA kind of great, but that's the reason that I migrated to this country 40 years back, because it's the best place to live in, and we are the world leaders. Let us act like world leaders. Pete, you are on WCPT. Yeah. Thank you for holding.
Sure. Thank you, Faheem, for giving me the opportunity to talk. I've been watching Israel and Hamas issues for the last couple of months. Earlier I've been, last 20 years, I've been knowing the situation. But the fact is that both parties, Palestinians and Israelis, are victims here, in my opinion. And the blame game is going on. We blame Israelis and we blame Palestinians. So the real issue is not them. The real issue is the international issue. So both of them are victims, and the small territory is so congested, it is unlivable for either Palestinians or Israelis. So Ottoman Empire when collapsed, so that is where the problem has started. So the solution for this is now, we cannot look at the back and see, blame each other and everybody. We have to find out the solution. Solution is in the hands of us, but nobody is talking about it. Number one, how much space we have on in that territory, and we have 22 Arab countries nearby there. There are 200 countries in the world. We can definitely accommodate these people easily in any part of the world.
Pete, I want to stop you right there. Why should the other Arab countries accommodate people who have lost the land in their own country that they lived in for centuries? Okay, it's like saying that, okay, fine, India and Pakistan were divided by the British. Let us assume that, the Pakistanis say, we want every Muslim in the world to come and live in Pakistan because it's a Muslim country. And then they start running out of space, so they start taking over land from India. And then Pakistan is backed by some of the other world, powers in enforcing this forced takeover of land from India. Do you think that's going to work? And you're not going to say, oh, you got all those Arab countries, let's bring all the Muslims over there also. No, the land belonged to the Palestinians. Let's, be clear on that. And they have the right to the land. And fine, Israel was created. That is history. That's how most countries were created, right? Arbitrary boundaries for most of the time, right? Yeah. So, on that note, Phil, thank you for calling in. We will continue the conversation, folks. We'll take a quick break. We didn't take our second commercial break, so Alex, if you don't mind, just go ahead and get us into our commercial break. We'll be right back.
Planning to lay off employees is never easy. Discover the Center for Strategic Solutions, your trusted partner in outplacement services. Are you a company in transition or an individual seeking a new opportunity? Our Chicago-based team specializes in providing personal outplacement services to employees. At the Center for Strategic Solutions, we're not just consultants, we're dedicated to your success. Ready to navigate change with confidence? Contact the Center for Strategic Solutions today at 847-306-9274. Visit us online at www.cfss.us or email info@cfss.us. The Center for Strategic Solutions, empowering employers and job seekers for success in the heart of Chicago.
Did you know there's an Illinois mandate that states by 2025, ComEd has to have 25% of the energy they deliver come from a green source? Because of this, plus the fees and taxes you've already paid on this program, if you qualify, you can get solar on your home at no out-of-pocket cost. This can mean an average savings on your electric bill of maybe 30 to 50%. More importantly, it would eliminate the uncertainty of ComEd raising your rates by whoever knows how much each year. Some people have noticed a 41% increase on their bill this spring, and ComEd has been asking for another 80% increase over the next 4 years. If your average bill is $200 a month now, maybe it could be reduced to $100 a month. Now, 5 years, would you rather pay $115 or possibly $400 to $500? If you'd like to see if you can qualify for this program, call Ken DeLuc at 312-617-8979. That's 312-617-8979. Help us save the environment and change that electric bill burden. That's 312-617-8979. Take advantage of this program while it's still available.
Welcome back to the Lightning Strike with Mohammed Faheem.
Good morning, folks, and welcome back to the Lightning Strike. I'm your host, Mohammed Faheem, coming to you live on WCPT, Chicago's progressive talk radio station. You could listen to us on www.heartlandsignal.com, and you can also go back to the WCPT website and SoundCloud. We will have the entire program on SoundCloud. You can download that and listen to it. In the studio with me today, John and Ken and Tyree, of course. Welcome, gentlemen. So, Ken, you were talking about something that happened recently in the medical and the pharmaceutical field. What's up? What's up on that?
Well, There was a vote by the FDA Advisory Committee that has determined that phenylephrine, that's an ingredient in many of the allergy medicines that are on the shelves in drugstores, is basically incapable of treating nasal congestion. And they've been selling this thing to the tune of a couple $2 billion for many years. This committee's been doing studies going back as far as 2007. Now, I got to give CVS some kudos because they've decided to remove these products from their shelves because they basically don't do anything. So I give them credit for that. Although I do have a bone to pick with them, and this is something I'm pretty passionate about, they still sell homeopathic products. Now, not everybody understands what homeopathy is. The concept is totally ridiculous. It's like kills like, or the law of infinitesimals. What it means is that if you take a toxin, you dilute it until there's no molecules left in it, that the water has some kind of memory of the substance that used to be in it, and that helps cure it if you're... It's nonsense, you know?
Can imagine selling that snake oil for literally hundreds of years now, when Dr. Hahnemann or whatever in Germany came up with the homeopathic, formulas. And by the way, folks, you see me, scratching my nose all the time. There's allergies. Does homeopathy take care of my allergies, Ken, if I take some of that medication?
Well, yeah, I guess if you take some of your snot, put it into a jug of water, and then, dilute it, the water will memorize that and help you out. No, I mean, seriously, the concept is like pouring a cup of coffee into the ocean from Europe, then going to Australia to check for caffeine. I mean, that's how ridiculous this whole concept is, okay? It has the same efficacy as the placebo effect.
I'm sorry, guys. If you're homeopaths out there, you're being sold a bill of goods, my friends. So go back and do some research and, see what you're trying to do. Ken is trying to do to increase your awareness over here and, bring you into the modern world. And Ken, thank you so much for bringing that up.
One other quick thing I just want to say about that. You would think the FDA could do something about this. Congress actually carved out an exception for homeopathy because of one senator who was a homeopath.
Okay.
And he pushed that legislation through. They've made billions of dollars out of this thing, and we have to educate the public and get this monstrosity off the market.
Okay, thank you so much for bringing it up. And folks, we got about 3 minutes to go towards closing. I wanted to bring up this thing about in the Pritzker administration now. Pritzker appointed Alicia Tate Nadeau in 2019 to lead the state agency overseeing pandemics, natural disasters, and an influx of migrants. Her assistant, Amy Gentry, earned more than Tate Nadeau in less than a year. Those are the news now, okay? How much did the assistant make? Any idea?
I think it was $250,000, wasn't it?
She made $28,000 to $48,000 a month as an executive assistant to the Illinois Emergency Management Agency's director. So between February and August, the assistant accounted for $240,761.30 in billing, sir.
Wow.
Okay, what a cushy job to have. She has since been fired, folks. But the question that John and Ken and I were, scratching our noses, at least I was scratching my nose on, was how many other agencies are out there that this kind of rip-off is happening and not being caught?
Well, I mean, we don't know. I think when something like this happens, this is an anomaly. Whether this was somebody put the comma somewhere or added a zero erroneously, one, it's an ethical question of people. I think are generally ethical, and if all of a sudden their paycheck jumped by 500%, they would say something's up here.
Someone should have noticed, right?
Well, the question is, the state has hundreds of thousands of workers, and if this was happening, there's audits, but those audits don't happen every month. They happen every year. So this probably would have been caught. It was caught. I don't think it was this individual who said, "Oh, by the way, I've been earning $250,000 for 6 months." So the challenge is, we have to trust that there are there are mechanisms to catch this.
Well, and on
correct
that
it.
note, Pete, I'm sorry we could not get you back on. We are running out of time, folks. You are listening to the Lightning Strike Sunday mornings, 9 to 10, and we are wrapping up the month of October with the show today. Feel free to come to our website, www.tlschicago.com, to check out the previous episodes. And if you want to come in as a guest, our guest next week are going to be some phenomenal guests coming in. Ken, you want to quickly talk about our guest for next week?
We're going to have Joey Alfano. He's the head mascot for the Harlem Globetrotters, and Frank Papalardo, who's was the head engineer for Soundstage and probably has met 80% of every band you've ever heard of.
And also, we're going to be having Laurie Summers, who's the coroner for Will County, and she'll be coming in and telling us about what a coroner does and the recent case also that happened. Obviously, she's not going to talk about the recent murder in Will County. On that note, folks, over and out.